Sins and secrets. I was a normal guy with a boring 9-to-5 job and no social life. It had been 2 years since my last relationship and I was just making it through the days. On a particularly stormy night, I was home streaming my favorite series while in bed when I heard a frantic knock on my door. I hoped it was not my neighbor coming to see me about a new policy. My apartment building was run by this crazy committee with 1,000 rules, like how many people could stay in an apartment, what time the music had to be off, etc. I did not mind as most of them did not impact me. Cursing all the way to the door, I opened it, and in stumbled a man who looked like he was halfway to his grave. He was bleeding a lot and murmuring stuff I could not understand. "Sir, are you okay? Do you need me to get help?" I asked. "No police, no hospital," he said before he passed out. Before anyone could see, I closed the door and took him in. I should have called the police. The man could have been involved in something dangerous, but something told me not to do it. I like to get the full story before I reacted. He went in and out of consciousness while I cleaned him up. After that, I gave him some clean clothes, then I laid him to sleep on my bed. I went to sleep in the armchair next to the bed. Just felt a bit weird to sleep next to someone I didn't know. I did not have work the following morning because of the bad weather. I was working as a bookkeeper at a small restaurant. The work was more than the pay, but I got by. In the morning, he was wide awake and looking at me when my eyes finally opened. After making some soup for him and letting him take a bath, I got down to asking him questions. "What happened to you?" I asked. His eyes were very guarded when I tried to speak to him. "Jumped out of a moving car," he said. "Why would you do that?" I asked. "It's complicated." "Well, I need to know if there was something illegal going on. I can't be an accomplice to a crime," I said. "Look, nothing criminal's going on. It's just some family stuff. Thanks for letting me stay. I'll be going now." He turned to leave, but I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Sympathy. The man looked like he had the entire world on his shoulders. "You can stay for another day. There's a storm outside and it would not be safe for you," I said. He looked at me with true gratitude. Naturally, we got to talking, and I got some details from him. He had a falling out with his stepfather, leading him to jump out of a moving car. "Tad bit dramatic, don't you think?" I asked. "I could not stand to be in the same room as him after he stopped himself. I did not ask any more personal questions. We just sat in awkward silence until I asked if he wanted to play a video game or not. Something about him gave me the impression that he was lonely, and those feelings resonated with me as well. It was only when he was sleeping and I was scrolling through my phone that I found the shocking story. For the past day, the Wi-Fi had been sketchy due to the weather, so I was a bit cut off from reality. However, I read something that blew my mind. My new friend's name was Derek, and he was missing. He had apparently stolen from his rich stepfather, then ran off with his thuggy friends. I went down a rabbit hole as I found out more about his family. They were some rich family, not mega rich, but way wealthier than most people. His mother had passed away in a yacht accident several months ago, and he went on a bender after that, mixing with the wrong crowds. And his stepfather had been trying to help him, but he stole money to buy drugs from him. So I was now harboring someone who had been involved with the shady stuff. The next morning, before work, I told him that he had to leave before I came back from work. I did not let him know that I knew about his past. He looked like such a good person that I found it hard to believe that he had been involved in such stuff. However, before I left, he said, "Thank you for helping me out. I have not known kindness since my mother passed away." And then he gave me some money. "Please, keep it," I said. He told me that he wanted to. I ended up telling him that he could stay for another day. I just did not feel good about sending him back to his stepfather. I had a feeling there was something bigger going on. He was not a fugitive, just missing. But I had to get the truth out of him somehow. We would talk after I got work. When I got home, I was greeted by a tantalizing scent. All I ate were takeouts I could not cook, but he had made a homemade meal to thank me. "Tristan, if it weren't for you, I would have been dead," he said. "What do you mean?" I asked. He then told me that his stepfather was trying to get rid of him. He had not done drugs after his mother died. He had been investigating her death. His stepdad framed him and tried to send him to rehab. He got out because the doctors could not find anything wrong with him. And that night, he jumped out of the moving car. His stepdad had sort of kidnapped him. I could not believe it. It was like some sort of action movie, but the way he broke down really broke my heart, and I had to pull him in for an embrace. The whole thing was scary, and I felt protective over him. I agreed and let him stay for 1 week while the investigators he hired tried to find out what had happened to his mom. So we were technically roommates for that time. He did not act like a rich kid at all. He was very humble and helpful around the house. It felt nice to not be alone anymore. As we slowly got used to each other, I found out more about his childhood. His family had struggled a lot. Then his biological dad started a company and they succeeded. Then his dad passed and his mom remarried an opportunistic man. Somehow, he also got me to open up about my difficult past growing up with no parents. I was raised by my grandmother who passed away too soon. We were both no strangers to loss, which established a communication between us. Now my apartment building had crazy rules and noisy neighbors. I was not allowed to have a roommate as it was a bachelor's flat. If someone was going to stay for more than one night, then I had to apply. I could not do that for him because everyone was looking for him. Either way, one of my neighbors who could not mind her own business confronted me the other day. "You've been having a lot of garbage lately," she said. "What does that have to do with anything?" I rolled my eyes. "Do you have someone staying with you? Did you also apply for permission?" she asked. "I have no one. Mind your own business." I walked away from her. I could feel her eyes glaring through my skull. We had to be more careful. When I returned, I found him lying on the sofa and staring upward. In all honesty, I was developing a little crush on him, something that I would never make known because I did not believe in love. "You seem deep in thought. Are you okay?" "What if they do not find anything?" he asked. "Then you stay here for longer and we wait." I took his hand. He sat up and looked at me. Then, catching me off guard, he hugged me. "Am I putting you in danger?" "This is the most exciting thing that has happened to me in ages. What are you even saying?" I laughed. He chuckled, and my heart warmed. I felt responsible for this human being despite myself. Just then, he leaned up and kissed me. I felt a momentary spark, and then I pulled away as if I had been choked. He apologized for the kiss, and everything went back to normal. However, I still felt that kiss for the rest of the day. There came a time when he had to go out and meet the investigators. I offered, but he said that I had already done too many favors for him already. He came home, safe, and he told me that they were close to nailing his stepdad. That night, we cuddled for the first time. He was really scared, and that was the least I could do. Then, everything sort of fell apart a few days later because someone had seen him enter my apartment at night. The committee leader sent me an email next day. I had to explain myself and was given a strike. We had to be careful. That morning, as I was going to work, the same neighbor who had suspected me gave me a smug look when I passed her. "Careful, your little boyfriend has people looking for him," she said. Could it be? His stepdad? I sent him a quick text to tell him to be careful before I went to work. As much as I hated the thought, maybe he had to move somewhere else. What I did not expect when I came home was to see police cars outside of my apartment building. As soon as I appeared, my neighbor pointed at me, and then the police cuffed me. I was confused until I saw Derek struggling against his restraints. The worst thing possible had happened. We had been caught. I tried to explain that Derek was innocent and I was helping him prove it, but all I got was "you have the right to remain silent" speech read out to me. When I got to the station, I was put in a cell and locked up, but I could not find him no matter how hard I tried. The officers would not give me any answers. I was given one phone call. I called the number that he had told me to if I ever needed help. Somehow, his lawyer got me out in seconds. Then I filled him in on everything that was going on. He called some people up and said that they would be able to find Derek as soon as possible. They looked for him at the house but could not seem to find him. His stepfather and Derek were nowhere to be found. I did not want to lose him. My heart ached at the thought. That ordeal made me realize just how much I liked him. Hopefully, it would not be too late. Then, I do not know why, but the yacht incident came to mind. Maybe his stepdad had taken him there. It was a long shot, but we managed to get there. And there in the distance, I could see two silhouettes. The police had been called for backup already. Before anyone could stop me, I had run all the way to where they were standing. There were no weapons in sight, but the man who I assumed to be his stepdad was holding papers. "Look, I'm giving you a chance to walk free. You just need to take this money and leave," he said. "You killed my mother. I will not let you get away with it," he said. "Look, the company was in trouble. Her insurance money saved it. I did what I had to for my family," he said. "You're mad. You killed a woman for money and then you framed Derek for theft. You deserve to go to jail," I said. "That's where you should be. You were aiding a fugitive," he laughed. "He did not commit the crime. You did," I said. "Who are you? Some little boy who is in and over his head? Convince your friend to sign these papers or you're both going to jail," he said. "I think you're the one that's going to jail," I said as I heard the sirens in the distance. He tried running towards the yacht, but the investigators were in on him in seconds, and in the end he went to jail for causing Derek's mom's accident and for corruption. He had been involved in illegal dealings for many years. Derek was a bit shaken by the whole thing, but I was there to support him. Thanks to his stepfather, the company was done for. Everything was so corrupted, and he was not left with anything. He had to get a job and start from the bottom. But he was happy that his mother's death had been avenged. And besides, for most of my childhood, I was not rich. I do not need all the money to be happy, he said. He stayed with me for one more night, but I thought to ask him something that had been bugging me for a while. "Hey, that kiss?" I started. I said, "I'm sorry, I mean, I'm not even sure that I like guys in that way," he explained. "It's understandable. I was a bit disappointed. I hope that things work out for you in the future," I said. "Thank you, and if you ever need a favor, I'll be happy to help," he said, pulling me in for a hug. I was going to miss him, but my heart hurt because of the missed opportunity. But that was not the last I saw of Derek, because a few days later he called me and asked me to come to a certain location. It was a penthouse in the wealthier part of town where he was staying at the moment. Most of the assets were unfrozen. "I wanted to give you something," he said, as he handed me a watch. I looked at it and saw that it looked really expensive. Of course I could not take it, even though he insisted. "But I want to thank you." Okay, let me take you out to dinner then," he said. At dinner we got to know each other a bit more. He was such a humble guy and also very good at listening. I was not an oversharer, but I told him about my heartbreak. He was the first person I told about it. "I cannot imagine how anyone could let go of you. You're so loyal and real in a world full of pretenders. I hope you know that." His words made me smile. Then, when we were standing in front of my apartment looking at each other later that night, he leaned into me and kissed me. This time, I did not let it go. I lost myself in him. When he pulled back, he was looking at me in wonder. "I really like you," he said. "But you said you were not into guys," I reminded him. "I have not had feelings for anyone in a long time, and I have always questioned who I was," he said. I was not that sure of what to do, but I gave him one last peck. Then turned to go, but then I stopped. "Want to stay the night? We don't have to do anything," I suggested. His face split into a wide grin as he followed me. We spent the whole night flirting and talking. I felt so alive again. That cloud of darkness that had been over my life for the past few years was lifted, and I saw the sunshine. Over the next few days, it was like we were in our little cocoon where no one could touch us. We stayed in, ordered junk food, played video games, and bonded. I admit I was a bit reluctant to let him go. I wanted no one to hurt him. The neighbor who was always giving me hell saw him those days and threatened to tell the committee leader. I told her to do so. I would find another place to live. He wanted me to move in with him, but I felt like it was a bit early, so I was getting myself a little loft. Small, but with no uptight neighbors. We had it all. The picnics, dates, sleepovers, and making love. Just like we had our first fight, trouble understanding each other, and little blunders. But with him, I felt stronger to get up when I fell. We were dating for a couple of months before we moved in together. With my bookkeeping skills, I could assist him in his new business, which was slowly growing. Karma also had a way of coming full circle, because his stepdad could not survive in prison. He was beaten badly by some of the prisoners and had his legs broken. He tried to reach out to Derek during his trial to get him to publicly forgive him. I guess he thought that it would get him a better sentence, but Derek did not budge. And either way, the man had also committed corruption. After the trial, we made the drive to a beautiful beach to scatter his mother's ashes. Summary: Tristan is living an ordinary life, miserable, and just taking it day by day. However, one night, a stranger in need of help shows up on his doorstep. This man turns out to be the stepson of a rich guy accused of being involved in gangs and drugs, stuff that Tristan does not want to be a part of. He confronts Derek, finding out that there are more to things than what his stepfather is feeding the media. The web of secret keeps unraveling as Tristan risks a lot to help out his new friend. Even he does not know why he is drawn to the guy who has a lot of trauma. The clock is ticking and they need to prove Derek's innocence before his stepdad finds out where he is. The end. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become part of our Rainbow Force and stay wholesome.